Yeah, all right, you have the floor.
Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, I can see it. I'm not sure. It looks a little bit blur. Okay, yeah, I think it's better now.
Okay. Right. Are you able to see the full screen with?
Yeah, so very much better. Yeah, I can see the full screen.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I assume you're all from the same area. And I'm really thankful that you guys hosted me. So this gives me an opportunity to share some of my learnings from the last few years where I have been trying to build these agents. Remember the word trying, because this is a fast evolving field and things change all the time. So what I did yesterday is no longer valid tomorrow. But what I have tried to do is give you a framework or go through the framework. So irrespective of what technology you're using, you should be able to make use of this framework or at least the thought process to build some agents. So as I was introduced, I'm Satyaram Sanasi. I'm a data engineer primarily, do a lot of development with ADK and also support a lot of ML systems as well. And I'm a Google developer expert in data cloud. So from a GDE perspective, I'm relatively new. I was part of the Innovators program before for the last 2.5 years, and I became part of GDE just earlier this year. So to start with, the core idea is about building the production-ready data agents, okay? So to start off with, we need to understand what a data agent is. So the data, we'll come back to what agents are and stuff like that later, but a data agent is something where you ask a question. Just think of it like a chatbot. You ask a question, and the LLM behind the scenes picks it up and then generates a query, goes to the database, fetches whatever you want, gets the information back, and then formats it in a good format so that it is something in a chatbot you can read, and where you can read, and then you get the results. So the agent is the one which coordinates everything to ensure that you get the result back, like what you're after. So by the way, if there is a question, you can stop in between and ask. If something is not clear and you won't be able to follow later on, if you think something like that, yeah, feel free to stop and ask. Otherwise, put your questions in the chat, and then maybe at the end of the presentation, we'll just go through the questions. And to be honest, the questions doesn't have to be very specific to this presentation. If you have any other questions as well, feel free to put in, and if possible, I will answer. There's no guarantee I'll answer any questions. I'll be able to give a good answer or anything, but yeah, feel free to ask. So when I say data agent, so the immediate thing that comes in your head, and you feel, okay, so it is nice. So I know I'm just going to ask some question, and I'm going to get some fantastic answers, like the proper answer. So if you are asking, okay, it's like if you are working for an e-commerce company or a retailer, let us say, and you're asking, okay, what are the top 5 selling products in Germany last quarter, and how does it compare against the new quarter? Your expectation is that you'll get your answer immediately, without delay, and then anyone can go and ask the question, so that you get the result back, and everyone in the organization, or most people in the organization, will have the information handy and make use of it. And the most important thing for a business user is okay, I don't have to write SQL. I don't have to go and ask someone in IT or someone in some analyst. I don't have to go and ask that question. So if I type in, I'm going to get the answer I want, and it is going to be accurate. So that is that's what the ideal data agent is, and that's what the theme for every business user who works on data is. But you might get an answer back saying shiny blue rocks, which doesn't make any sense for the business user because there's no product like that, and I don't really, to be honest, I don't know what it is. So that is primarily because the SQL it generated was probably incorrect, or it never even generated an SQL, and it just came up with an answer. Based on whatever query you asked, and for whatever reason you thought, okay, shiny blue rocks sounds nice. And on top of it, it may also have cost a lot of money if you have. So this presentation we are going to focus on BigQuery. So if you are querying BigQuery like this, then you might end up with a huge bill if it is not managed properly in the backend. It may be you may end up with a huge bill. So that is something to remember. So the dream is, yeah, I want the best. I want immediate answer, accurate answer, but the reality is not that way. So when I say NL to SQL, it is basically natural language to SQL conversion. Okay, so if you ask the person natural language or normal English text or any of your local language if your LLM supports, and then you get a SQL back, and in addition, not only getting the SQL back, but also executing the SQL and getting the results. So what are the major challenges? Is like the natural language is ambiguous. So what you ask and what you speak, for example, you guys are based in Nigeria, and I'm based in UK, and someone in Germany. So different people have different styles of asking the question. So that is, which means it's ambiguous. So there's no right, that's not right or wrong. So that makes it ambiguous. And also, if you are using complex business terminology, if there is a business terminology that is very, very specific to your business, then the LLM is going to struggle understanding it, and it may hallucinate, of course. And also, like the same data may mean slightly different in different places, different tables. If you have half a dozen tables from different systems, your billing system and your order management system, for example, then the same word, same column, if you are talking in the language of a table, or might actually mean different things. And it may mean a very similar thing, but then there will be a nuance in one of the systems. So these are some of the challenges there. And also, like, so how many tables? So you have like half a dozen, or if you're working for a large enterprise, you may have dozens, if not hundreds of databases and systems. And how are you going to query all of them, or can you really query all of them? So all these are challenges when you are looking at building a system which translates natural language to SQL and build a data agent. And as the business evolves, so you are going to introduce more data, more differences of language, more differences of different business terms, everything. So that makes it a lot more complex. And we have to mention about domain-specific queries as well. Okay, probably this looks like a bit of a repeat of the previous. Yeah, it looks a little bit of a repeat of the previous slide. But yeah, so this business logic and the business query. So these are the examples. So if someone is saying, okay, if a business user is saying, show me top customers. So for a marketing person, top customers may be different because he may be looking he or she may be looking at a very specific product, for example. Whereas for someone in finance, top customer may actually be very different. And again, if someone is asking, okay, Q4 performance, what does it mean? Is it a calendar year, fiscal year? And if it's a fiscal year, what is the fiscal year? And if it's specific for a company, companies have their own years. And then there's financial year. So there are different types of years. So what are you talking about? And again, active, if you're a social media company or a web, if you're managing a website and you're saying, okay, tell me how many active users are, then what does that mean? So this is what we discussed in the previous slide, and again, the slide which says, which gives you examples of what of the challenges. And it's not just the language, also it's the schema. So how have you designed the schema, and how have you defined? Is it normalized? Is it denormalized? Is it a combination of two, which is very, very normal, very common, to use the right term? It's very, very common. And how have you joined the tables? Like you may have even different names for the columns. So all these things make it very complex for your LLM to understand. And also, as I mentioned earlier, inconsistent naming. You may get like the same business term or the same business meaning might have different terms for in different systems. And even I have seen a number of databases and systems where the same business meaning is represented by two different words in the same database. Then imagine if it comes from multiple databases. And of course, there are data quality issues as well. So if you are doing minimum, maximum, and if you are doing a sum of the sales, for example, and there is duplicates, and of course, always the inaccurate data. So all these things also have an impact on the output. And as I mentioned earlier, like things keep changing, new systems come in, and also you may start off with a database which was handling 10,000 users, and your business has grown over the next few years. Business has grown, and you're having 1 million users. So is your this agent, the data agent, is it still good for using in production? Does it still give the right data? And does it perform well? And does it keep your costs and does it keep your costs down without making it too high? So these are probably the highest rated challenges, I would say. And of course, we have discussed a number of challenges with them. So just so that we know, like what makes agentic. So basically, you find you have come across the word agentic, and probably many of you might already know, but just to make sure there's like everyone understands it, it has to be autonomous. So they should be able to take decisions and take actions independently, and they should work towards a specific objective. And they should be able to make use of tools, like it may be APIs, it may be other MCP tools, or any type of tools. I would say in this case, generally an API or a function call, usually, or it can also be another agent that may not necessarily fall under the word tool, but fundamentally that's the case. Like if you want to communicate with another agent as well. And then it should be able to have a memory and maintain the context. And of course, the most important thing, where the generative AI and the agents, generative AI shines is in reasoning and planning. So all these things have to be there to make the agent agentic. So there are. I mean, if you have been looking into the generative AI systems and agents in particular, would have come across a number of libraries, number of, say, for example, Crew AI, and I can't remember what is it, Economy or something like that for Microsoft, and there are quite a few other frameworks. Crew AI, I feel, is like one of the most popular and easy to use ones as well. And of course, if you have heard of LangChain, LangGraph, where you'll be able to build build the flows, the generative AI flows and the agentic flows. So you have all these frameworks, and to that adds the agent development kit, the Google's open source framework for agents. So it was, I think, probably it has been about a year in the market, or not in the market, like actually it's open source, so anyone can pick up and make use of. And if any of you come from a non-Google background, or if you're not necessarily using Google and you think, okay, ADK is not something you want to use because maybe it is Google specific, I would say it is not really. And as I say, it is open source. And there are some announcements coming very soon where I feel the adoption would skyrocket. So don't ignore ADK because it is Google's. Just be open-minded, and if you want to make use of it, be open-minded and make use of the agent development kit. And though I said like, okay, you be open-minded and it's not very specifically for Google, but one of the major advantages, because Google is built the framework and is very interested in keeping it live and make it better, everything. So Google is very interested in that. And because of that, it has kind of integrated along with the Google Cloud Services. So you can, I mean, it is easy to configure a lot of things, say security, for example, is very easy to configure. And also it is very easy to set up evaluation services and anything else that goes along, that is part of the platform. So you can just issue a command and productionize the agents that you have built. So it is very tightly integrated into the Google ecosystem, but that doesn't necessarily mean it cannot be implemented elsewhere and it cannot be used elsewhere. And because it is open source, there is a very good possibility, like if you find there's a small function missing, a small functionality missing, you can always extend the classes, the Python classes, or now recently Java ADK is also available. So that's actually in version 0.4, something like that. Whereas the Python ADK is version 1 and beyond. So if you want to extend the classes and introduce your own functionality, that is perfectly possible. So just a few slides. We'll just go through the agent development kit. Okay. So as mentioned, like it's like a framework, and it is like React or Angular to like development. So it just makes it easy, and it is standardized, so it is easy to create. You can and it is actually built. If you look into the source code, it uses LangChain and LangGraph heavily. You can of course write your own LangChain and LangGraph agent and GenAI system, but obviously it is going to be a lot more work. Whereas all these are with ADK, it's going to be easy. So I have added a few things, a few slides on how ADK process requests, because it's important to understand this. So it's important to understand this even to kind of look at what we are trying to do from a data agent perspective. So the way ADK works is like it starts with the user providing a query or a prompt, which comes to the runner, which is able to process the event, and also it creates services, like it maintains a state, it has memory, etc. So basically, the runner is the one which manages the overall environment for processing. And the runner, once it sets up, for example, it starts the service, like a memory, it allocates memory, it starts a session so that if multiple people are using the same agent, then different sessions. So things like that is what runner handles. And you can ask the execution logic. I would call this the execution logic is the agent, and the LLM invocation, everything here. And you get the result back, and the runner sends back sends back the result. And here, like from services also kind of can talk with storage to for example, the state of the session. And to maintain the state of the session, it can even write into storage. For example, if you are going to Gemini on your mobile phone, so all the data, all the conversations are still there, and you can go back and use that. So those things, that is, I would say, that is a state. So this is another representation. It is more within the agent. So the agent gets the request. It calls the LLM. From the LLM calls a specific tool, which is, as I mentioned, which is a function, and gets the information from the function, and then interprets it and writes the output and sends the output back to the user. And again, this is something that is important to understand. So if so here you have the agent, you have the model, you have the tools, and there are all these callbacks. So before agent callback, before model callback, and before tool callback. So if, I mean, it is obvious, like before agent is like this particular function is called before the agent is called. Here it is before the model, and this is before a tool is called, and the same way after. So this is extremely important to understand if you are looking to build any production system. It's not just production data agent, but any production agents. These are very important to understand. And this is just one final slide on ADK, where you can have a LLM-based agent, which is the basic agent which does your functionality, which has the reasoning tools and does all this stuff. But also there are workflow agents, which can be sequential. So you define the order in which each of the multiple agents, in which order it has to be executed. Parallel agent, where you define which agents can run in parallel and loop. So you can kind of call the same agent and build a loop. And of course, you always have to ensure you put an exit logic there, say number of times you can execute as 5, something like that. But so loop agent is very useful. For example, if you are asking a question and you generate an output, and you want to validate that output. So for example, you want to validate the output to ensure that it is right or it is to the standards. And if it is not, you want to regenerate it. So that's a loop. And if none of these workflow agents are you're not happy with any of the agents, then you can build your own custom agent, which will do something different, like what you want. So this is a very quick one why you can use ADK or any of the frameworks. It is quick. It requires minimal code. Then it has built-in features. In ADK's case, Google manages the updates, which is a good thing for you. And then there are pre-built tool sets as well. So for example, in this case, we are going to look at BigQuery, BigQuery tool set. So yeah, you can write your own tool set, but you don't have to. So whereas if you are, okay, the right column is about, if you're building your own, obviously it's going to take a lot longer. I'm sure I don't have to go through any of these things. So again, sorry, that's one more slide we came here. Like with ADK, you have seamless Google Cloud integration, and then you have the security and access control, which is very much integrated into if you are using Google Cloud. This is quite useful, and flexible deployment options. You can deploy within the cloud. You can deploy into Cloud Run. I'm not very sure Cloud Function, but possibly you may be able to deploy into a Cloud Function as well, or you can deploy into Agent, which is relatively new, maybe a few months old, which is useful for managing a lot of agents. So you have multiple deployment options, and you have monitoring and insights, especially if you are deploying to agent. And again, if you are spending on Google Cloud, then it's all kind of integrated. So one more thing, well, just we have to remember, this is not just about ADK. This is about if you are building a data agent with any framework, or you're building your own. This is important. You have to evaluate. So some of the usual things in evaluation, like you create a evaluation data set which says, okay, this is like if you are doing unit testing. Think of it like you're doing unit testing in your code or integration testing. So I mean, I'm saying about non-agent code. If you have done that, then it's not that complicated here. So you build, you define what you want, a list of things that you know the answers for, and then for each of those questions, you determine the answers and you provide the answers, and then execute it against your agent to see whether you get the right answers back and whether it matches the answers that you are expecting. And to automate it, again, there is the Vertex AI Gen AI evaluation service if you are using on Google Cloud, but it is not necessary. You can write your own test suite. That's perfectly possible. And these are the kind of three things that I looked into. So the factual error is like if you are getting the right answer. If you are asking for a number, are you getting the right number? So, and it can be just right or wrong, nothing else. And if your output is generating a few lines, still you need to have the factual error. If you have a sales, for example, you need to have that. In addition to that, if you have asked to describe something or compare against something else and things like that, if you have asked to write something, then you have to compare it against how close the expected output, which expected result, which you defined in the previous here, like when evaluation data set. So you have to ensure that you have to ensure that it is matching as close as possible, and then you can, for example, give it a score. If it is matching well, perfectly 5. If it is matching okay, 0, 1. So it is like a range. So which is again useful to kind of evaluate what your output is. And tool trajectory. I think this is a very, very important one. So, for example, in a data agent, if the agent can use a number of tools, you want to ensure that the tools are definitely used, and possibly in the right order, or in a mixed order. Depends on what your requirement is, but at least in a data agent, a right order is important. So, for example, you can't generate and execute an SQL before getting the information about a table. So that's so these are the sort of evaluations that you can use. And of course, depending on what system you are building and what the requirements are, you can add a lot more. And some of these, for example, tool trajectories available within Vertex AI evaluation service, and it is quite a common thing for agent as well as for agents. Whereas these two, at least at the moment, they are not really available within Vertex AI, but you can define your own custom metrics in Vertex AI, or of course you can write your own. So when I kind of did this in one of the previous projects, I just wrote these code. I was not using a particular tool. Okay. So now let's get into the main thing that we are talking about. So this is the sort of agent. Let me see if I have. Yeah. So this is what we'll be doing. Like, so you have an agent which has system instructions, and it processes prompts and responses, and it calls the LLM, and the LLM decides based on your input, decides to call the tools. These are the 3 tools which we have exposed as I mentioned, BigQuery toolset, which is a pre-built. Or of course, if you want to use MCP toolbox for databases, you can use, or if you are using any other database, you can use tool sets from there. But roughly, these in any database, any backend you are using, it's likely to be these three tools, core tools. So once this is done, then we are going to call the after tool function, which captures some additional information about the tool, and then pass the result back to the LLM for it to, one more. So one more arrow here from LLM to the agent. So we do this and we evaluate. So this is what it is. So just maybe I can quickly show this, what I have here. Or maybe you'll see it in the end. So starting, like, you have to create a baseline. So this is not agent or data agent issue or data agent approach. If you are building any model, any AI model or ML model or anything, you have to start with creating a baseline. So using whatever techniques that we described, these three. So some of these numbers may not, these may not be the same for you if you are trying to build, but just assume these are the ones. Okay. So the most important thing is you choose a data set. Let's just talk about BigQuery here. You choose a particular data set and ensure that you know the data in there. And if you are just like that trying to build something, try not to use something which is very common. Say, for example, if you are going to, I have in the example I might show, I have used the COVID-19 New York data set. So, but if you are building for a business, for your company, then it is going to be private. So be careful on what, if you are trying to evaluate this or trying to build a system like this as just you are building it as a proof of concept without using your business data. Be careful about what data you are using, because some of the data which is available in public, the LLM already knows about it, so it might do better, or it might even hallucinate and just not bother about reading your tables. It might just come up with some answer. So just be careful about it. Just be aware of it at least. So in this case, about half of the BigQuery queries failed, actually, like whatever sent, and then they were not factual either. And this is the sort of range you get. So basically, for example, if you are asking this question, then the LLM was not able to understand it and produce the right answer. That's what it is. So here you have established a baseline. So the idea now is to ensure that you can do better than this. So one of the first things, most important thing, as you understand, is like enriching your data. So ensure you have all the data that is relevant. So you describe the table, you describe the columns in the table, and also wherever possible provide business context within the descriptions. When I'm saying these are enrich the data with metadata, I'm primarily talking about within the database, within BigQuery in this case, writing comments on the table, writing comments for the columns, and giving as much information as possible. So if you're just doing this, I'm fairly confident, because earlier it was just your agent in the first step, which didn't have any of these, was just relying on the column names, which may not have made sense to it. So that is again where I'm recommending, not if you want to build a proof of concept, a serious proof of concept, don't use anything that is publicly available, because it already knows some of the information, and it might just generate the the right result, and that is misleading. So it might not necessarily mean that it is working better. So that is one important optimization. And then another thing is like just try out various models. So just don't rely on one single model. You may like one model, or there's maybe a reason for you to use one particular model, but if wherever possible, try to use this, try to test it on multiple models, because that is extremely important. And it's not just about multiple models, it is even different versions. When different versions, if we are using Gemini, then you may use 1, 2, 2.5, again Flash Pro. So it's better to kind of try to evaluate it against multiple models. Ultimately, you may have other priorities as well, not just the performance. Like, say, if your company wants to use only a particular model, there may be a reason against for that. So for all those things, but still, it is useful to evaluate. And when you're evaluating, one tip I would do is like start from a base model, because it will be cheaper. It is likely to be cheaper. Say, for example, if you are using Google's, maybe you can start with first try with Flash, or even a smaller one, depending on the complexity of your system. But let us say you start with Flash, and then if you have to, then you have to use Pro, and try with the Pro model. So that is something that is extremely important to evaluate. And so every time you make any of these changes, then you go back and run the evaluation data set that we did before. So if you are changing slightly, the factor it is likely to improve, or at least that is the hope. So this one is extremely important. Enriching with metadata. Actually, there's one more point I want to make about enriching with metadata. So if you are using something like Looker, which has a very rich semantic layer, but by default, if you're using Looker, then you have to create a semantic layer and make use of it. Looker makes use of it. So you can actually use the same semantic layer. And I'm hoping like there will be more integration into Google Cloud Platform, like Dataform or something. But I've not heard anything specific about it. But if you're using Looker, then if your company is using Looker, consider using the semantic layer from Looker, because that is very rich, and that is going to be extremely useful here. So the another very, very important area here is about the system, about the instructions, the system instructions. I would say, like, be generous. You have to balance it out again, but you have to give as much reasonable information as possible. So you have to probably say, for example, if you have a column which may be uppercase, lowercase, then just make sure that is mentioned. Yes, of course, you can mention it here, and also if it is for a specific column, just mention it and mention it within your schema, like what I said within the database. That may be quite useful, or you just mention here as well, additional point as well. And also, if you are saying date ranges, what does the date ranges mean, and how you have to make use of it. And also just give some useful information about your domain, your business. So what each of those means. Top states. Basically, if you are saying top states, at least the LLM often assumes you're talking about US states, because that is the most widely available information it has from its own training data. So it might imply some of those things. And sometimes you would expect, like, if you have defined a tool, if you have provided a tool, and the tool provider has given as much information as possible within the tool set, you would expect the LLMs to pick up. But unfortunately, at least till now, and quite a few times I have seen, it doesn't pick up. So you may have to explicitly say, okay, do this. do this first, do this next, even though you might assume based on the descriptions that you have provided, you might assume it all is right. It will pick up automatically, at least that is the theory, but unfortunately it doesn't. And of course, and that is one of the reasons that you have to evaluate on different models, different LLMs as such, as well as different versions of the model, because the different versions, each of the versions might be able to handle it efficiently and differently. So that is another reason. So, but the point is just make sure you give as much information as possible. But when I say give as much information as possible, but you have to be also cautious about the cost, because the more information you provide, the more expensive it is going to be, because you are processing more tokens. And sometimes it's not just the cost, and also it might, if you are giving a lot of information to the agent, to the LLM, it might just not bother looking at some of the information. So don't overload it either, but at the same time, give as much information as possible. And this is again, when you're writing system instructions, this is again very, very important. Like it does, you're not able to, you won't be able to get it the first time. You're probably writing 5 times, 10 times, and it keeps evolving. You have to continue doing it. Even after the system goes into production, you find an issue, find something is not working as you thought during your development and testing phase, then you may have to go back and rewrite it. So this is a never-ending thing. So it's throughout the life cycle of your application, the agent application. You have to continue doing this. And yeah. And these three things, like I already mentioned about, you have to provide clear instructions about how to use the tools. And also you may want to give instructions about SQL that you want to write. So you have to just mention, okay, do not use a particular function. Do not use, for example, within BigQuery, there are a lot of approximate functions. So the agent can decide, the LLM can decide, okay, I think this is good enough for me. Like approximate function is good enough for me, but that may not necessarily be for in your case. So if that is the case, then make sure you mention that. And also you mentioned, okay, simple things like don't say to select star, that sort of things as well. It will be useful to provide, especially if you see that sort of queries are being generated. So when you're doing a data agent, also always capture the queries as well, so that you know for what prompt, what output you are getting. So that is important. That will help you to kind of tune your instruction set, as well as the metadata, the database metadata. So that's extremely important. And also make sure the output. So it's also important, like you have to say, like, don't hallucinate, and also if you want to give a specific instruction on how you want the output to be. So all those things go in here. And this is a very, very important step, as much as the previous step of defining the data, metadata. So this is just an example. So you just very clearly say, okay, you provide the role, say you are a data analysis agent, and then this is what I mentioned, like you say you must use list table IDs and then get table info to understand the schema before you generate SQL. So list table IDs is a tool that gives you a list of tables from a particular data set within BigQuery, and then get table info, obvious, like it provides information about a particular table, the columns, the column descriptions, and the data types, all those sort of things. And then, so you are very clearly saying, use that information before you generate the SQL. Because as I mentioned earlier, LLMs might have a lot of information already from its own training. And if you are asking something very common, and that's very often you might end up doing something like that if you are working for a retailer. So a lot of retail data sets are available online, and there's a lot of information. So if you're asking, okay, tell me what the sales was last week, it might just assume, okay, these are this may be the table name, this may be the column name for the sales based on its own training data. So that is why you have to explicitly mention this, or you makes sense mentioning it if it is not using it, of course, because maybe if my mini demo works, then when I'm using different models, one model requires an explicit instruction, whereas the other model doesn't. So things like that. It all depends on your model as well. So that is the reason you have to kind of do the evaluation properly. It's not like step 1, step 2, step 3. You may have to go back to step 2, step 3, and repeat it as well. So that is important. Like, you keep evaluating. Again, I'm mentioning not just during development, but also during the operational phase of the project or the operational life cycle. Okay. And again, if there is something very specific, if you want something very specific, then you say, okay, use this particular function for generating medians. Or for example, if you want to, whenever there's a filtering, then you just say, okay, if it is case sensitive, then always convert to lower. So that can be one of it. And then when you're specifying dates, then if you're saying, okay, 1st to 31st of August, then you want to make sure the last day, 31st of August, is also captured. Things like that are extremely important. And also, you keep saying, okay, do not hallucinate, but don't trust LLMs. And I'm sure you guys would have come across it, if not in an application, but at least when you're doing when you're using your for other things, for your own personal things as well. And yeah, you just say, if you're unable to answer, say so, but don't trust it again. And again, if you want to include some business terminology, information about business terminology, so it just says the top 10 customers, then what it is. And then also, this is also another important thing, the golden queries. So if you know, like, okay, these are the sort of queries which my business users are going to be repeatedly asking, then instead of allowing the LLM to kind of come up with its own query, if you know that is kind of a repetitive thing, then you just provide that. You provide a sample prompt, and you say, okay, if someone asks something along these lines, then always use this query. So that's extremely important, and that is very useful. So by doing this, you would avoid hallucination. You would avoid generating queries that are incorrect, all those things, because you have already provided. And also an additional benefit is, if you are using it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to ask the same or similar prompt. Even if there is a related prompt, then it knows, oh, okay, so show me the best performing state. And now you are saying, okay, show me the 2 best performing states. Then it might be able to kind of deduct, okay, I know this is how I get the best performing state. But maybe I can use a similar query or similar structure to get 2 best performing states. So things like that. So it is useful to have golden queries as well. But as I mentioned, like, be cautious on what you're using and how you're doing it, because you don't want to bombard the LLM with instructions that it may not need. And also, on a practical level, one other thing which I have come across is, like, yeah, you are providing this system instructions for the agent, well and good, but if the same agent is being used by different people, different departments within the organization, like HR may be using, marketing, sales, each and another team may be using, or some other system may be using. If you want all of these people or different departments, different users to use, the instruction set may have to vary. So one of the ways you could do is, like, for every user or every set of users, you define a bit of instructions. Say top 10 customers, means top 10 in purchase value. If it may be mine, and one of and yours may be top 10 customers mean top 10 in number of visits. If you are a web analytics department, top 10 customers mean different. Like, because then you are looking at if this person has visited a lot of times. As an example, I'm saying, it depends on your business use case. So if it's a social media company, yes, top 10 is maybe one of the crucial values. But if you're a retail company, it may not necessarily be. But yeah, so what I mean is like top 10 customers might mean different for business, different users. So if that is going to be your case, where different departments or different group of users would be using, and each group might have different definitions, then depending on who's calling in your application, in your application where you call these agents, maybe incorporate that extra piece of information. Maybe just put a local config file which has the information about that particular user, on what specific terms they are after, specific instructions they would will be suitable for them. So you can add them, and then you can pass it to the agent as well. So that's another thing, another useful tip I would give you if you are looking at building these agents. So by doing this, like, yeah, the success rate, actual factual error, overall factual accuracy, all of them improve. Of course, you can keep optimizing, or you can stop optimizing a little earlier. It all depends on what your requirement is, right? So this one, like whatever we're talking is for, we're talking about tools. I was talking about tools. I was talking about LLMs and stuff. But it depends on how complex your system is. If you want your system to scale and be more accurate, for example, and stuff, you don't necessarily have to use a single agent system. You can use whatever we said. Like, so we told, okay, get information about the data set on the data, and then generate the SQL and execute it, and do some validations if required. So all of these can be different agents. So you can have different agents for getting the schema, one agent for getting the schema, one agent for executing the generated query. Yeah, probably the SQL generation agent would also have helped if I had listed it. So, and then execute the agent. And then if you want to validate the generated SQL, so you can validate in BigQuery, for example, you can do a dry run and validate the SQL, the generated SQL, and get, for example, the number of bytes that the query is likely to process. And yeah, so that is, and also first is whether it is valid, if the generated SQL is valid or not, and the price. And so you can put a logic in there saying, okay, if it is going to process more than, let us say, 100 megabytes of data, or 100,000, depending on the business case, then just stop it, just return an error and do not progress. So things like that you can do here. And also security. When I say security, it can look through your prompt for any malicious prompts. So if someone is trying to kind of get some information which they are not supposed to see, or they are trying to it is like poison your prompts. So those sort of things you can use a security agent to do. But the fact is, like, you can do all of these even within the single agent system. If you remember, like, we looked at this, but yeah, this one. So you can use the before agent, after agent callback, all these callback to do a number of those things as well. But of course, this means if you're doing it as a multi-agent system, then you can control each of these more effectively, because each of these, and with ADK, one more thing is, like, each of these agents don't have to necessarily use the same model. So for one, you can use Gemini Pro. One, you can use use the lower version of Gemini, and the Flash version of Gemini. I mean, and if you think, okay, for SQL generation, I found Claude doing better. Then you can use that. Or if you want, for security agent, if you want to use a local LLM, you can do that. So you can, it doesn't have to be like each of these agents don't necessarily have to use the same LLM either. You can use different models, LLM models for each of those. And of course, it makes it a lot easier to customize the instructions and everything if you're doing something like this. And of course, this means it is going to be a little bit more complex to manage. But again, if that is what your business needs, that is what will meet your business needs, and it makes sense from a business perspective to have it, yes, you still can go for it. And one of the things here, again, which will be extremely useful if you are doing something like this, is when you are getting the schema and generating the SQL. If you are using like 10-15 tables, personally, I would say just stick with a small number of tables if you are building a data agent, because the more number of tables, the more complex it gets. It gets expensive and it gets less reliable. So ideally ideally use less number of tables. And if you have to use more, maybe you can use views and define some business logic already in there, but use as less number of tables as possible. That makes it much more manageable and reliable as well. But if you have to build a system which has a lot more tables, and you want if you have defined, then for example something like this, like the get schema agent, you can have all your definitions, your schema definitions, and your business definitions, everything in a RAG database, in a vector database, and use RAG to kind of understand the schema and then build a SQL. That is also possible, and it makes it a lot easier if you're building a multi-agent system. So if you want more complex thing, then yes, go for a multi-agent system, multi-agent data agent, I would say. So okay, we have just looked at all the optimizations specifically around how to get the good SQL, good queries, etc. But beyond this, you also have to make sure it is fit for production. So in those cases, you have to look at cost governance. I did already mention, if your query, you can do a dry run within. If you are talking about BigQuery, if you can do a dry run, and of course every database might have slightly different ways of handling it, so you can do a dry run and get the information. If it is going to be too expensive for the query to run, so you can do a governance there. And also you want to make sure the runtime, the security is there. It's secure. You want to ensure that the prompt has not generated SQL that is malicious. Maybe, as I mentioned, like reading the wrong data or trying to change something, delete the data, and also prompt injection. So the user gives a prompt and changes the system instruction, which means then it may give a totally different results. And security, again, this is a general security. Make sure all your credentials are managed centrally, and building a system like this helps. And of course, this is the data level security. That is a very common thing that's told for any system. It is not just for the data agent. Anywhere you're using data, serious data, then you follow the principle of least privilege, right? So we did see some. So this is again, probably I have already mentioned this. So this is again you can implement with before tool callback. You can implement a cost governance thing before tool callback. Just check how much it is using, and if your query is going to be expensive, more than a number of bytes, then you would rather not run it. So you can just stop it and return error back to the user. Again, I think we did discuss about this. So you want to make sure your runtime security is proper. Again, you can use one of those before model, after model call, or even before agent, after agent, depending on what you are doing. And often It is not just using one for one purpose. You may want to do something like before agent callback, just scan the prompt, ensure it is all okay with what you're expecting. And also in the next step, every step, you can obviously do the security. So this again, did mention before, like you want to make sure the data level security is there, and ensure if you are using Google Cloud, yeah, then you have IAM, and of course, if you are using other clouds, you have equivalents there. So it is not going to change. Then again, like you can use MCP toolbox for databases if you are using on GCP, and if you're talking with a number of different databases. It's not just for the GCP databases. You have MCP toolbox for databases. It goes to third-party databases as well. So again, this is open source, so which means again you can pick it up and ensure it fits your purpose. And if it's not, if you want to have additional functionality, then you can extend the tools and extend any of the functionality there. That is one useful thing that if you're going for some of these. And also this provides centralized access for the databases. And if you're going through this, then you're also avoiding direct database credentials, which to be handled by the agent itself. So the agent doesn't have any database credentials, but the MCP toolbox has. So which means you're guarding it. Your code, your core code doesn't have the database credentials. Everything is managed within MCP, so it's much easier to manage. And of course, like you do, at least at this stage of agent development, I think it is still useful to have human oversight and approval. So depending on what system, what information you're building, then ensure there is something in between. Say, for example, you are building a data agent to send a report out to a customer, let us say a third-party customer, and they are going to publish it, but they're going to rely on it. Say, for example, a stock market. If your company is listed and you're going to send some information to the regulatory authority about your sales and about your current profits, this year's profit, then you want to make sure some human looks through it, ensures that it's all right, everything is right, everything is as per requirement, and it is then approves it for, even if it goes back to the agent, for the agent to say send an email or some other methodology. So it is there. So always build depending on your requirement, depending on your agent, the data agent. If you have to use human in the loop, do not shy away from this, because this is extremely critical. And importantly, we are not, at least today, we are not in a stage where we can rely on these agents very much. So we are still in development. Maybe 10 years down the line, this may not make sense. But today, I think it still makes sense. Having a human in the loop is extremely important, where necessary, of course. So this is exactly what we went through. So evaluate, that is the most important thing. So, and if possible, evaluate automatically. So it's not like manual evaluation. As required, like, yeah, human loop required, yes. Otherwise, do automated evaluation so that you can kind of continuously measure the performance. And yeah, build rich metadata. That is again something which is extremely important if you want the agent to generate the correct query and the most efficient query also. So that is extremely important. And yeah, give detailed system instructions. Don't shy away from that. Give good instructions so that your LLM understands what you want, and based on that, it generates, hopefully generates the correct SQL and executes it. And then build guardrails. Just make sure your system is secure. That is the most important thing. Here we are dealing with data, and it is business sensitive. If you are dealing with business data, it is business sensitive. Make sure the data is not lost and the data is not tampered with, and you don't get the wrong result. And depending on what area of business your company is in, the implications may be different. And probably one thing that is not mentioned here, which ideally should have been mentioned. So this is not the first point, especially the evaluation, or even the last one, first and the last. They are not one-off things. You have to keep doing it all the time. If you are deploying an agent like this to production, ensure that you capture everything. Say, capture what the prompt is, capture what the SQL query is, and okay, of course, you don't have to capture the result with the SQL query. Probably you may be able to do it, and also say how many bytes were processed if required. So, as much information as possible, you gather it, as much information as possible, so that on a regular basis you can run evaluation, and then using that evaluation, you can do points 2 and 3, so that it is continuously improving. And this is not just with agents. If you are building an ML system, this is what you would do. If you have already built an ML system, this is exactly what you would have done. You evaluate, continuous evaluation, continuous monitoring. And once you learn something is not right, something is drifting. Say, for example, if you're looking for accuracy and accuracy is drifting in an ML system, I'm saying. So you are going to say, okay, now there's a drift of accuracy. So what can I do? Why is it happening? And then correct your model. So very similar. You keep evaluating it, and especially it is true with a data agent, because you can come up with 25 queries, or you can come with 200 queries, but once it goes to the business user, they are going to come up with 5,500 different queries, which you have not even thought of. So you have to be careful around it. So you just keep monitoring. Randomly pick up some if you have deployed it to production. If you have captured the prompt and query, go pick up random queries, random prompts, match them up, ensure that they are right. How many have not produced the right result? So all those things keep evaluating, and then improving using the metadata and the system instructions, or any other means possible. So that's extremely important. Okay, before that, maybe I'll just very quickly, maybe it won't take too long, a few minutes. I'll just show some of the concepts that we discussed. I have not included evaluation here because yeah, honestly, one thing is I didn't get a chance to build an evaluation thing. And another thing which discouraged me was there's a lot of changes coming into the Vertex AI evaluation service very soon. So I didn't really want to spend too much time on that. So here, if you let me just show you the agent. Just stick with the agent here. Okay. So I have just, it's a very simple agent. So I have used Gemini 2.0 Flash, and I have used a basic instruction set here. And here, if you see the BigQuery toolset. So the BigQuery toolset, again, is provided from within. It's provided as part of ADK because it's Google. So you have that. Of course, you can use any toolset, or if you want to use MCP, of course you can use MCP's toolset as well. If you define the MCP toolbox, for example, for BigQuery, if you have and you start the toolbox, then you can use the tools directly from MCP as well. So there's nothing stopping you doing that. And here, so we are just saying use appropriate tools to retrieve the BigQuery data and then run these queries. So I'm just providing the data, the project and the data set as well here. And so this is where I'm just, so here, if you see, I'm doing an after tool callback. So basically after the tool executes, the execute SQL happens in this case. Very specifically, that's why we are interested in. So when the tool is execute SQL, then it just checks if the SQL was successfully executed. If it wasn't, then it will just put it mark it as failure. So it increases the failure count, or if it is successful, then it increases the success count. Okay. So this is how you can kind of capture some of the information. Okay, so this one and run. I don't want to really show run because it's just difficult to describe. So it's much easier. So let me just do a very quick run here. So I'm using run.py, which actually calls this agent. So here I told use appropriate tools to retrieve BigQuery metadata and then execute it. Let's see if it does it. You see here it didn't do it. So basically, if it will here, if the after tool call back, you would see the tool called is printed out here. So if you see here, okay, it didn't print out the tool. What did it? Okay, didn't print out the tool. So it just says okay, because it didn't call a tool. If you see here, it didn't call a tool basically. It just says I need to know the table name containing the relevant information. So I have told, see, this is my project. This is my project, and this is my data set. And I have told I have all these tools available. I told I have all these tools available, which is basically the tools are there. If you remember in the presentation, there was 3 tools like list table IDs, get table info, and execute SQL. So all these tools are there, but still it didn't make use of. Let's see if, I don't know if it's going to change, but let's see. I'm just saying, okay, always follow these steps. And I've given the tool names. Let's see if it works. Okay, still it is not able to get. Okay, let me remove this. And just change to 2.5 flash. Okay, so it was earlier it was 2.0 flash. Let me change to 2.5 flash. Okay, didn't do it this time either. Let's see if it does this time. Always a problem with the live demo. I was expecting it to use even without the tools. The last time I ran it, that's what it did. This time it didn't like it. Now when I have given an explicit instruction, you see like now it says, okay, I'm calling the list table IDs tool, and then it gets the list of tables, and then gets the list of, and gets the information about the table, and then it is executing the SQL, and then it says now. So this is like a public data set actually. It was a COVID-19 underscore NYT public data set. But what I did was just made a copy to my local, my own project, and just change the name of the tables so that it at least by table name it doesn't understand. But even though I have not really described, given any column metadata or table metadata, I have not given. But because it looks at the column names, and then it just thinks, okay, I know this from public data set, so these are the right column names for me to use. So that's how it is using. And of course, it might be using like that, or my prompt. If you look at my prompt, which is where I'm. Tell me the number of people who died, I said. Then maybe it is looking at, thinking, okay, this particular table has this column called deaths. Let me make use of it. And I know I have a start date. So I have a date. So I don't know whether it is the right value to use. I don't know. But that's what it has used. So this is where there may be start date and there may be end date. I don't remember. I've not really looked at, I'm not looking at the schema right now. But I'm just saying there may be other dates also, which is supposed to be used, but it is just using this. I don't know. So these are the sort of things that you have to be careful about, and that is where the description helps. And also one of the things which I have not really mentioned earlier in those 3 evaluation things, one other useful evaluation like I generally like with this is like what you could do you could give a prompt and say, this is the SQL that should be generated, and just run that 25 different prompts and capture the corresponding SQLs here and compare against what is expected. So some of these things, you can come up with new evaluation metrics as you go on. So that would be quite useful. And again, these are some of the other things that we have captured there, like how many tokens in the session we used, and how many in prompts and how many in the output. So all those things. Yeah. So I think that's all I have for the day.
Yeah. Hello, Satya.
Hi. Yeah. So if you have any questions, or if there are any questions in the chat, for example, we can just go through.
All right. Thank you very much for taking time to do this with us. Interestingly, it is recorded, and we are going to share it with our community so that they can also take a look at it at a later time. Also, when the recording is up on YouTube, I would also share you the link so that you can also check it out and maybe share it with people you want to also view it. And of course, that from people watching it, the knowledge sharing also goes on. So there was a question in the chat at one point in time that, are there unofficial JavaScript libraries for Google ADK? That's currently, it is only Python that is supported. I'm not so sure if you answered it while you were talking, or you are just saying it now.
To be honest, I have not come across any JavaScript library, but I won't be surprised if there is some work going on either within Google or someone doing it. But I'm not aware of it personally. And the additional point is, it's not just Python. Now you officially, or at least Google is officially doing Java as well, Java SDK. Yes, that's the right.
Yeah,
Java SDK as well, but that is not. I mean, that's still kind of in preview type, but it is available if you want to start making use of it. If that is, I know you asked for JavaScript, but as an additional information, just in case anyone is interested in Java, then yes, you can use the Java.
All right, that's fine. Kiki and Aisha, you have any question?
No, I don't have any question. Thank you so much. The presentation was really nice and very explanatory.
Thank you. I hope you guys found it useful. Yeah, one thing I was mentioning was like, yes, this is like, look at it only as a concept. Conceptually, yes, how you approach building a data agent. Forget about it as ADK, or forget about it has to be BigQuery. It can be anything. But this is the approach you take for a data agent. That's what I was. Sorry, you were saying something, Aisha. Like I just.
Like I said, you explained well, and since the recording will be available, so it's something you can always go back on to check if you have more questions, or when you want to like make a practice of what you've shown us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have shared my LinkedIn, and you should be able to find that on the GDG page as well as I did show a slide with that. So feel free to connect. And if you have any question, yeah, just feel free to message me. I'll try my best to kind of get back to you.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now. And